What's going on, everybody? C4 here, and it's time for a little bit of a reflection period. We talked about the Eagles' loss briefly in the moment in last night's player grades video, and I figure, because it's such a monumental loss, because we haven't lost in 2 months, I feel like it's time to kind of take back everything that I've seen. Obviously, you've seen like all the Skip Bayless shows, and you've seen the press conferences, you've seen social media going off about the Eagles. Oh, the Eagles are overrated, they're done, they're all this, they're this and that. It's time to take, a nice little reflection period. So in, very, very good mind, a clear conscience, I can sit back and reflect on this game. And basically, my summary from last night was that, relax. The old Aaron Rodgers, R-E-L-A-X, relax. Eagles are still 10-2. Home field is still well within our reach. We're tied with the Vikings at 10-2. And I think that the Eagles have a much easier remaining schedule than the Minnesota Vikings do to finish up with that #1 seed in the NFC. But seeing what happens in Seattle, seeing the refs clearly, I don't care if Seattle, like everyone's saying, oh, the Seattle's are the most penalized team in the NFL. The refs picked up 2 flags against the Seahawks last night. It was like the similar penalties that Philly got. I'm not going to come out and say that the refs were perfect on both sides of the ball, but there clearly seemed to be some home field calls. There clearly seemed to be something going awry. So for the Philadelphia Eagles, we need to get that. We need to get that home field advantage, be it the refs giving us some favorable calls, the refs picking up our flags or something like that throughout the playoffs. We don't want to see this Eagles team have to travel. And the biggest thing about this off, refs aside, bringing up the refs and trying to relate everything back to bad reffing, you're never gonna win that war. You're kind of fighting an uphill battle. So what is more important for the Eagles to get that home field advantage, because the top contenders in the NFC, they don't play well in the cold. You have the Seattle Seahawks. Hopefully we don't have to see Seattle again. If we do, I really, really want to see them come to Philadelphia and see just how different things are going to be there. But when you look at the top dogs, the Saints, indoor team. You got the Vikings, indoor team. Have them come play in just a frigid game in Philly. Get them out of their comfortable environment. That's a big-time advantage for the Philadelphia Eagles. So home field is big. And I mean, for looking back against last night's loss against Seattle, I don't know what the percentage is. Probably still very, very unlikely that we have to see Seattle again at CenturyLink Field at the 12th or 13th man, debating on how much you want to throw the refs in last night. So that's good. I mean, credit to them. Which goes to the other point is that last night, the refs were bad. There was that illegal forward pass that I don't care how many people try to say it's not that. It was a forward pass. That was a forward pass. And you can't hold it against Seattle because it was ours. The reason why people are talking about it is because our head coach, Doug Peterson, and whoever his personnel is up in the booth, failed to tell him to challenge that play. It's not on the refs. It's not on the Seahawks. It's on Doug Peterson. That would have changed the momentum of the game. Not saying we would have won, but that would have been, capitalize on the momentum that we just got after Carson Wentz had his MVP-like drive, and then stop them from scoring, get the ball back, and see what can happen. But all in all, above all, Russell Wilson had the game of the season last night. Better than the game against the Texans. The Texans do not offer the same type of pressure that the Philadelphia Eagles defense can do, and Russell Wilson was unreal. Simply unreal. He played maybe the best game of the last 2 seasons. I haven't seen a whole lot of Seahawks games. I've seen most of their primetime ones, and I can't think of a better game, a better showcase of Russell Wilson's talent than last night. But to credit the Eagles, when a guy that's a legit MVP candidate has his best game of the season, and he has his best games by improvising, by not doing stuff that you could study from X's and O's. It kind of, takes a little bit of the pressure off of our defensive performance last night, because how do you game plan to stop that? Obviously, Michael Kendricks could have done a better job. Maybe we could have tried to spy him more, but, still for the most part, it wasn't like our linebackers were completely oblivious to Russell Wilson moving outside of the pocket. It was just, he just did miraculous plays, ballerina-type plays to be able to extend the drives. And it's one of those things, like, I see a lot of people say, oh, the Eagles defenses, they suck, all that, this and that. You can't game plan for Russell Wilson. And when you look at the remainder of the games, there's no other team that has a Russell Wilson. There's a reason why Russell Wilson is regarded as one of the best quarterbacks in the National Football League and has had the elite status for quite some time. Case Keenum's not going to scramble and make the plays Russell Wilson did. Jared Goff's not going to scramble and make the plays that Russell Wilson did. Drew Brees is not going to scramble around and make plays Russell Wilson did. So we don't have to worry about seeing that again. And if we do, as I stated just before, I hope it to God it's in Philly, because I think the result will be different. But ultimately, Russell Wilson had the game of the season. That's his MVP showcase game, and he played really, really well. But something that I need to say, putting my Skip Bayless hat on, if you will, if Jordan Hicks is healthy and he's in that game, is it different? You know, Jordan Hicks is one of the best linebackers in football when healthy. I would say it's not too homerish to say that Jordan Hicks, when healthy, over the last 2 seasons, he's probably averaged out to be a top 10 linebacker in football. If he is in that game, and we don't have to rely on a Najee Good or something like that, does Russell Wilson have all that time? Do those tight ends get open as much as they did? Do the running backs get open as much as they did? I mean, woulda, coulda, shoulda. But that goes to another point, is that the Eagles have been able to hide their injuries. They've been able to, you know, everyone wants to overlook during that 10-1 start that the Philadelphia Eagles had massive injuries. No Jason Peters, one of the best tackles in football. No Jordan Hicks. Last year was graded out like a top 5 linebacker. We don't have those guys, but you know, everyone that just tries to debate against the Eagles, they just keep overlooking it. But last night it got exposed against a really good Seattle team away on the road in a hostile environment. Big V was terrible. Frank Clark ate his lunch. And then you had, obviously, the linebackers, which, not to do the whole Jordan Hicks was in that game, they would have won, you know, like Skip Bayless does with Shawn Lee. But the point about this is that Philly can't hide these injuries as well as they think they could, as well as the media think they could. They are legitimate injuries, and they creeped their ugly head up last night, and it's definitely something to be aware of. But again, I think that we went up against, you know, as formidable perhaps as our front 7 in Seattle last night, and they attacked Big V. I don't think we're going to see a whole lot of that in the remainder of the season. Even though the Rams are a good defense, looking at the remaining teams that we played, we should be fine. But more importantly, the Hicks at linebacker, man, some of these good offenses that still have to come out and play us. I mean, you can't sleep on the Raiders. You can't sleep, obviously, on the Rams. We got to keep an eye on those linebackers, man. They're getting tired. And the last point is that I'd rather have a loss here than to be one and done in the playoffs. Very similar to what Dallas was last season. A lot of people are considering our rise this year to be almost identical to what the Cowboys did last year. But I'd rather this loss, this humbling loss, to happen now than in the first round of the playoffs like Dallas did last year and embarrass their entire fan base. We cannot have that happen in Philly, and I don't think it will happen because this is the kind of like gut check. You know, the Philadelphia Eagles, this was an overconfident team. Doing the electric slide, doing this and that, the big elaborate celebrations and stuff. That's a team that was front running. And this was the smack in the mouth that makes them go, man, we're not as good as we thought we were. This is the kind of stuff that, you know, when you look at last week's game, the moment was too big for Doug Peterson. Those timid play calling, how they play called that game in the first half was they gave way too much respect to the Seattle Seahawks, and we called something that's completely different than the game plan that has got us to this 10-1 spot. Terrible play calling, but that is what we need. We get this out of the way now. We don't, you know, fly to 15-1 or something like that during the regular season. And in the first game, once we play a legitimate team in the playoffs, that's the experience we get. We go, oh man, this is what it's like to play a legitimate team. I am shocked. We got this reality check right now and not in the playoffs. So that is still a positive, and I think that, you know, maybe we need to thank the Seattle Seahawks. Maybe we need to take a look back and go, wow. I mean, sure, that game, we had everything go wrong. That game was almost as much of Russell Wilson having an MVP type performance as it was the Philadelphia Eagles beating themselves. The Philadelphia Eagles were their own worst enemy last night by having the Carson Wentz fumble and having Wentz have his worst game of the season in perhaps, you know, one of the biggest limelights, biggest time that he needed to show up, which I guess that could be something to keep an eye on for down the future. But still, the Philadelphia Eagles couldn't have anything else go more wrong than they did last night, and they were 2 scores away from winning. And they were 2 scores that they had away from winning. There were 4 scores on the board that Philly left off. Woulda, coulda, shoulda. But when it's a woulda, coulda, shoulda scenario, that does not mean that the Philadelphia Eagles are a bad team. This wasn't Philadelphia played their best football. Carson Wentz had an outstanding game. We didn't have any, you know, bad penalty calls against us. We didn't have that forward pass nonsense. We had a good game, and Seattle still beat us. Seattle still was able to take our best shot and still stand up and beat us. No, this was Philadelphia going up against an incredible performance from an incredible quarterback and shooting ourselves in the foot. So that is still a positive. This is still a really good team. And like I said last night, man, we got the Rams. That is a tremendous bounce back game. Like I said, the Rams aren't going to have. When you look at that game last night, Russell Wilson made every single play. Those plays do not happen from Jared Goff. So that's all I can say. I'm not going to be I wasn't overconfident at all against the Seahawks for that game, and then I did the hype. I know some Philadelphia Eagle fans probably were. You're never going to really get a lot of overconfidence from me because I've been an Eagle fan for too long, and I've had that, you know, had to swallow those bitter pills from the Andy Reid years and the Michael Vick years. So, you know, this is going to be a very, very tough Rams game, but we're going to really see if this Seattle Seahawks loss was a reality check or if this Philadelphia Eagles team is not legitimate. I think it's much more A, not too much of B. Very excited for this ball game. Time to move on. So, that's all I got to kind of say here on the 5th down. Let me know what you guys think upon reflecting on the Seattle Seahawks loss in the comment section below. As always, if it's your first time stopping by, don't be afraid to hit that subscribe button. And until next time, it's C4 saying peace out.